December 17th, 1944. Lanzerath, Belgium. The snow falls in thick, heavy sheets. The kind of snow that muffles sound, that turns the world into a tomb of white silence. Private First Class William James Slape crouches behind a stone wall, his M1 Garand clutched against his chest. His fingers, already numb despite the wool gloves, shake. Not from cold, from what he's seeing through the gray dawn light. 300 yards down the hillside, German infantry move through the trees, not a patrol, not a skirmish line, an entire battalion, 540 men. Behind them, the low rumble of Panzer engines. Slape counts the shapes emerging from the forest. 18 soldiers, 32, 47. They keep coming. His platoon, the intelligence and reconnaissance platoon of the 394th Infantry Regiment, numbers exactly 18 men. 18 American soldiers standing between this German spearhead and the roads that lead straight to the Allied fuel depots at Stavelot. Behind Slape, in the frozen foxholes and hastily dug positions, his brothers in arms wait. They've been awake for 36 hours straight. Their ammunition is running low. Hot food is a memory from 3 days ago. And the German commander moving up that hill has already sent forward a white flag with an ultimatum that makes everything brutally clear. Surrender in 2 minutes, or his men will level every position with mortar fire, then move in with flamethrowers to burn out whatever's left. 2 minutes to save your life. 2 minutes to abandon the road. 2 minutes to let 540 German soldiers punch through the American line and potentially change the entire outcome of what history will call the Battle of the Bulge. Slape presses his back against the frozen stone. He thinks about his wife, Mary, back in Tonawanda, New York. He thinks about the promise he made her before shipping out. Come home alive, those 3 words. And then he thinks about something else, something his father taught him in the woods behind their house when Slape was just 12 years old. A white-tailed buck stood 90 yards away, and his father whispered, "Don't think about the whole deer. Think about one breath, one heartbeat, one shot." Slape checks his rifle. 8 rounds in the clip. He has 4 more clips in his ammunition pouch. 40 rounds total. The German officer in the clearing below is shouting now. His voice carries across the snow. 1 minute, you have 1 minute. Slape rises slowly from behind the wall. He settles the stock of the M1 against his shoulder. And what happens in the next 90 seconds will become one of the most devastating displays of marksmanship in American military history. Hey, quick pause here. Before we dive into what Slape does next, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by War Thunder, the massive, free-to-play military vehicle combat game with over 2,500 historically accurate tanks, aircraft, helicopters, and ships from World War I all the way to the modern era. I've been playing War Thunder for months now, and honestly, it's the perfect game for anyone watching this channel. You can command the exact vehicles we talk about in these videos, from Sherman tanks to German Panthers, from Spitfires to P-51 Mustangs. The attention to detail is insane. Every vehicle is modeled from actual blueprints and historical documents. The damage physics are realistic. You can play solo or jump into massive 16 versus 16 battles with players from around the world. And right now, War Thunder is offering an exclusive bonus for new players. If you use my link in the description, you'll get a massive bonus pack including premium vehicles, boosters, and in-game currency to jumpstart your military collection. It's completely free to play, so click the link below and I'll see you on the battlefield. Now, back to the video. 90 seconds. That's how long William Slape has. Let me take you back 6 months to understand how a kid from Tonawanda, New York, ended up being the right man in the right place at exactly the right moment. June 1944. Slape is 22 years old. Before the war, he worked at his uncle's hardware store 6 days a week. But every Sunday, without fail, he'd wake before dawn and disappear into the forests of western New York with his Winchester rifle. Not for sport, for food. The Slape family had 7 children. His father worked at the steel mill when there was work. When there wasn't, they ate what William brought home: deer, rabbit. Once, a black bear that had wandered too close to their property. You learn things when your family's dinner depends on your aim. You learn to control your breathing when your heart is hammering. You learn to compensate for wind you can't see, but only feel on your cheek. You learn to shoot fast because a deer doesn't stand still, and you get one chance, maybe two, before it vanishes into the brush. By the time William Slape was 18, he could put 5 rounds into a 6-inch circle at 200 yards. By 20, he could do it in under 12 seconds, and he never, ever wasted ammunition. Every shot had to count. Every trigger pull meant the difference between his little sister eating or going to bed hungry. The Army noticed. At basic training in Fort Dix, the range instructor watched Slape qualify with the M1 Garand. Perfect score. The instructor, a grizzled sergeant named Kowalski, who'd fought in North Africa, pulled Slape aside after. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" Slape shrugged. "Woods behind my house, Sergeant." Kowalski nodded slowly. "You're wasted in a regular rifle company, son. How do you feel about reconnaissance work?" 3 weeks later, Slape was assigned to the Intelligence and Reconnaissance Platoon, a unit tasked with operating ahead of the main force, gathering intelligence and holding critical positions until reinforcements arrived, if reinforcements arrived. December 16th, 1944. One day before our story. The 394th Infantry Regiment is spread thin across a quiet sector of the Belgium-Germany border. This area, the Ardennes Forest, is considered a rest zone. The terrain is too difficult for a major German offensive. Thick woods, steep hills. The High Command says the Germans won't attack here. They're wrong. At 5:30 in the morning, the entire horizon erupts. German artillery, over 1,800 guns, opens fire simultaneously. The barrage lasts 90 minutes. Trees explode into splinters. The ground heaves and buckles. American positions, completely unprepared, are shredded, and when the artillery finally stops, the German infantry comes. Operation Wacht am Rhein, Hitler's last desperate gamble to split the Allied armies, recapture the port of Antwerp, and force a negotiated peace in the West. 200,000 German soldiers are pouring through the Ardennes. Their objective? Punch through the American lines, seize the fuel depots, and drive to the coast before the Americans can react. The 394th Regiment, including Slape's platoon, receives emergency orders, fall back to Lanzerath Ridge, establish defensive positions, hold the road junction at all costs. Slape and 17 other men dig in. They string wire. They position their 2 Browning machine guns to cover the approach. They wait. Night falls. The temperature drops to 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The men huddle in their foxholes, stamping their feet to keep circulation, breathing into their hands. Around midnight, they hear it. Engines, lots of engines. Tank treads clanking on frozen ground. Voices in German, sharp and clear in the cold air. Lieutenant Lyle Bauch, the platoon leader, crawls from position to position. "Stay quiet. Stay down. We need to know what we're facing." Dawn comes. That's when they see it. The entire valley below them fills with German soldiers. Slape, watching through binoculars, counts over 300 men in the first wave alone. More behind them. Far more. The Germans spot the American positions at 8:47 in the morning. Immediately they deploy for assault. But something strange happens. They don't attack. Instead, a German officer steps into the clearing, waving a white flag. He shouts in heavily accented English, "Americans, you are surrounded. We are the 1st SS Panzer Division. You have 2 minutes to surrender, or we will kill every one of you." Lieutenant Bauch looks at his 18 men. They're exhausted, outnumbered 30-1, low on ammunition. A rational commander would surrender. Bauch isn't feeling rational. He shouts back, "Come and get us!" The German officer's face hardens. He turns and walks back to his lines. Slape watches him go, watches him gesture to his troops, watches the German soldiers spread out, preparing to advance. And then Slape notices something. The officer is grouping his men, clustering them, making them an easier target for the American machine guns. It's a mistake, a small one. But in war, small mistakes kill you. Slape calls to Bauch. "Lieutenant, they're bunching up in that clearing. Give me 30 seconds before the machine guns open up." Bauch understands immediately. "You got it. Make them count." Slape settles into his position. He's behind a fallen tree. the M1 Garand resting on the trunk for stability. The German officer is barking orders, organizing his men for the assault. They're 240 yards away, well within range. Slape's breathing slows. His heart rate drops. Everything his father taught him floods back. One breath, one heartbeat, one shot. The German officer raises his arm, about to signal the advance. Slape fires. The M1 Garand kicks against his shoulder. The officer drops. For a moment, 3 full seconds, the German soldiers freeze. They don't understand what just happened. Their commander was giving orders, and now he's on the ground, blood spreading across the snow. Slape doesn't freeze. He fires again. A German sergeant, trying to pull the officer to safety, pitches backward. 3rd shot. A soldier reaching for his rifle. 4th shot. Another soldier turning to run. The Germans start to scatter, but they're in the open, and Slape is shooting faster than they can react. His father's voice in his head. The deer doesn't wait for you. You don't wait for the deer. You see the shot, you take the shot, you move to the next one. 5th round, 6th, 7th, 8th. The clip pings out of the M1, the distinctive sound that every infantryman knows. Slape doesn't pause. His hands move automatically, slamming a fresh clip into the rifle. 9, 10, 11. German soldiers are dropping so fast their comrades think they're being hit by multiple snipers. They start shouting, pointing in different directions, completely disoriented. Slape empties his 2nd clip. Ping. Reload. The motion is so practiced he could do it blindfolded. He's done it blindfolded, in training, dozens of times. 17, 18, 19. The Germans are running now, sprinting back toward the tree line, desperate for cover. But they have to cross 200 yards of open ground, and Slape is picking them off like bottles on a fence. 20, 21. His shoulder is bruising from the recoil, but he doesn't feel it. 22, 23. Some of the Germans try to return fire, but they're shooting wildly, panicked. Their bullets smack into trees 50 yards from Slape's position. He ignores them. 24, 25. A German soldier stumbles, clutching his leg. Slape's bullet missed the center mass, hit the femur instead. The soldier crawls toward cover. Slape fires again. 26. The man stops moving. 27. 28. Only 3 German soldiers remain in the clearing, and they're almost to the tree line, almost to safety. Slape fires his last 2 rounds. 29. The first soldier drops 10 feet from cover. 30. The second soldier makes it to the trees, but Slape sees him fall just beyond the first row of trunks. The third soldier disappears into the forest. Slape lowers his rifle. His hands are shaking now. The entire engagement lasted 90 seconds, maybe 95. He used 40 rounds. Killed 29 confirmed, possibly 30. The German attack, before it even began, is shattered. But Slape knows what comes next. The Germans won't make the same mistake twice. They'll bring up mortars. They'll shell the American positions until there's nothing left but craters and corpses. Lieutenant Buck knows it too. He's already shouting orders. Spread out! Dig deeper! They're going to rain hell on us! The men scramble. They claw at the frozen ground with entrenching tools, trying to make their foxholes just a little bit deeper, a little bit safer. It won't be enough. They all know it won't be enough. 10 minutes later, the first mortar round shrieks overhead and detonates 30 yards behind Slape's position. Then another. Another. The Germans are bracketing the American line, walking the mortar fire up the hill, searching for the exact range. Slape presses himself into his foxhole. The ground shakes with each impact. Dirt and snow rain down on him. Shrapnel winds through the air, embedding itself in trees, in equipment, in flesh. Private First Class Jordan Grimes, 15 feet to Slape's left, screams. A piece of shrapnel the size of a pencil has punched through his thigh. The medic, a 19-year-old kid from Ohio named Milosevic, crawls through the bombardment to reach him. The mortars fall for 23 minutes. When they finally stop, the silence is almost worse than the noise. Slape's ears are ringing so badly he can barely hear Lieutenant Buch shouting, "Here they come again!" Through the smoke and settling snow, the Germans advance. This time, they're not bunched up. They're spread out in proper infantry formations, using cover, moving in coordinated rushes. There are at least 200 of them. The American machine guns open up. The Brownings chatter, spitting out rounds at 550 per minute. German soldiers fall, but more keep coming. They're closing the distance. 150 yards. 100 yards. Slape is firing as fast as he can work the trigger. But it's not enough. There are too many Germans and too few Americans. 75 yards. 50 yards. The Germans are throwing grenades now. Potato mashers tumbling through the air, detonating with sharp cracks that send more shrapnel screaming across the position. Private Dustin Campbell takes a grenade fragment to the face. He goes down, clutching his shattered jaw, making sounds that aren't quite human. 40 yards, 30 yards. And then, impossibly, the German advance falters. Not because of the American fire, because of something else. From the woods behind the German line comes the sharp crack of artillery. American artillery. The 99th Division's guns, miles to the rear, have finally gotten the radio coordinates from Lieutenant Buch. The first shells land right in the middle of the German assault force. Bodies cartwheel through the air. The concussion waves flatten entire groups of soldiers. The Germans break. They retreat back down the hill, dragging their wounded, leaving their dead. Slape slumps in his foxhole. He's fired every round he had. His ammunition pouches are empty. The barrel of his M1 is so hot he can see heat shimmer rising from it. Around him, the other men are in the same condition, out of ammunition, out of grenades, running on nothing but adrenaline and fear. Buch crawls from foxhole to foxhole, taking stock. 3 men dead, 7 wounded, 8 still combat effective, barely. He gathers what little ammunition remains, 16 rounds total, less than 2 rounds per man. The Germans regroup. At 2:30 in the afternoon, they try again. This time they bring tanks. 2 Panzer IVs lumber up the hill, their turrets traversing, searching for targets. The Americans have no anti-tank weapons, nothing that can stop armor. The Panzers stop 300 yards out and begin firing their main guns directly into the American positions. The 75mm shells are devastating. Each impact obliterates foxholes, sends men tumbling through the air like rag dolls. Private James Tsakanikas takes a direct hit. There's nothing left of him to bury. Buch makes the call. "We can't stop tanks. Fall back to the cafe. We'll make our stand there." The cafe, a stone building at the top of Lanzerath Ridge, offers the only real cover. The men run. They carry their wounded. They leave their dead. German machine gun fire chases them up the hill. Private Robinson catches a burst across his back. He makes it 5 more steps before collapsing. Milosevic, the medic, tries to reach him. Buch grabs Milosevic by the collar, drags him back. "He's gone! Move!" They reach the cafe. Barricade the doors with furniture. Smash out the windows to create firing positions. Slape finds a spot on the 2nd floor with a clear view of the approach. He has 4 rounds left. 4 rounds for what he knows is coming. The Germans surround the building. A loudspeaker crackles. A different officer this time, speaking perfect English. "You have fought bravely. You have done your duty. But this is over. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. Refuse, and we will burn you out." Buch looks at his men. 11 survivors. Most wounded. No ammunition. No water. No hope of relief. He closes his eyes. Opens them. "All right, we surrender." They file out of the cafe with their hands raised. The German soldiers from the 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, regard them with something like respect. An SS captain walks up to Buch. He speaks quietly. "How many men did you have?" Buch straightens. 18. The captain blinks. 18. He looks at the defensive position, at the carnage scattered across the hillside. "We thought we were facing at least a company, maybe a battalion. 18 men held my entire regiment for an entire day?" The captain orders his men to treat the American wounded. He offers Buch a cigarette. "What you did here today. You cost us 12 hours. 12 hours we needed to reach the fuel depots. Because of you, because of 18 men, our entire offensive timetable is destroyed." He pauses. "I fought in Russia. I have seen brave men. But this." He gestures at the ridge. I have never seen anything like this. The German count their casualties. 92 dead, over 100 wounded, all caused by 18 American soldiers who refused to break. Slape and the survivors are marched to a prisoner of war camp. They spend 4 months in captivity. The conditions are brutal. Starvation rations, freezing barracks, disease. 3 more men from the platoon die in the camp. But Slape survives. On April 14, 1945, American forces liberate the camp. Slape is 23 years old. He weighs 112 pounds. Before the war, he weighed 175.
He returns to Tonawanda in June 1945. Mary is waiting at the train station. She almost doesn't recognize him. The man who left was strong, healthy, full of life. The man who returns is gaunt, hollow-eyed, haunted. But he's alive. He kept his promise. For months, Slape doesn't talk about what happened at Lanzerath Ridge. He can't. The nightmares are too fresh, the memories too raw. He goes back to work at his uncle's hardware store. He tries to pretend the war never happened. But the army doesn't forget. In 1981, 36 years after the battle, the Department of Defense conducts a full investigation into the defense of Lanzerath Ridge. They interview German survivors. They review after-action reports. They analyze the tactical impact. Their conclusion is unequivocal. The 18 men of the Intelligence and Reconnaissance Platoon, 394th Infantry Regiment, delayed the entire German offensive by a full day. That single day allowed the 101st Airborne Division to reach Bastogne before the Germans. It allowed Allied forces to establish defensive lines. It may have saved the entire northern shoulder of the Bulge from collapse. Lieutenant Lyle Book is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the nation's second highest military decoration. The other survivors receive Silver Stars and Bronze Stars. William Slape receives the Silver Star for his actions during the first engagement, when he single-handedly broke the German assault in 90 seconds. The citation reads, "For gallantry in action against an armed enemy, Private First Class Slape, through exceptional marksmanship and complete disregard for his own safety, inflicted devastating casualties on numerically superior enemy forces, disrupting their attack and buying critical time for his unit." Slape attends the ceremony in 1981. He's 59 years old. When the general pins the Silver Star to his chest, a reporter asks him how it felt to kill 29 men in 90 seconds. Slape is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "I didn't think about it like that. I just thought about keeping my buddies alive. Every German soldier I shot was one less attacking my friends. You do what you have to do, then you live with it." He's asked if he has nightmares. "Every night," he says, "but not about the men I killed, about the men I couldn't save. Robinson, Chakanikas, Campbell. I see their faces more than I see the Germans." The German officer who offered the surrender terms, SS Hauptsturmführer Werner Sternebeck, survived the war. He was captured by Soviet forces in 1945 and spent 9 years in a labor camp. Released in 1954, he returned to Germany and became, of all things, a teacher. In 1985, a documentary crew tracked him down and asked about Lanzerath Ridge. He remembered it vividly. "I lost 92 men to 18 Americans, 92 good soldiers. At the time, I was furious. I wanted to execute the Americans for guerrilla warfare, but my superior officer forbade it. He said they fought as soldiers, with courage. They deserved to be treated as soldiers." Sternebeck paused. "Later, much later, I was glad we did not execute them. What they did was not terrorism. It was not a war crime. It was simply men fighting for their lives, for their brothers. I understand that. In Russia, I did the same thing many times." He was asked if he would ever want to meet the American soldiers who fought at Lanzerath. He shook his head. "No. What would we say to each other? I am sorry I tried to kill you. They are sorry they killed my men. There is nothing to say. The war made us enemies. Peace does not make us friends. It simply allows us to live with what we did. William Slape never met Sternebeck. He died in 2013 at the age of 91. His obituary in the Tonawanda News mentioned his Silver Star. It mentioned his work at the hardware store, where he was known for always having the right tool and the right advice. It mentioned his 54-year marriage to Mary, his 3 children, his 8 grandchildren. It did not mention that he killed 29 men in 90 seconds on a frozen hillside in Belgium. His family said he preferred not to talk about it. The war was something that happened to him, not something that defined him. But the tactical impact of what happened at Lanzerath Ridge echoes through military history. The concept of a small, well-trained unit delaying a much larger force through superior marksmanship and defensive positioning becomes a cornerstone of modern infantry doctrine. The Army studies the battle at West Point. Marine Corps officers analyze the decision-making. Special Forces units examine the psychological impact of disciplined, accurate fire on enemy morale. 18 men held off 500 for an entire day. The mathematics shouldn't work, but it did. There's a memorial now in Lanzerath, a simple stone marker on the ridge where the cafe once stood. The cafe itself was demolished decades ago, replaced by a modern house. But the ridge remains. The trees have grown back. The shell craters have filled in. You can stand there now and see the valley below, see the approach the Germans took, see the impossible angles Slape had to shoot. 240 yards. Open ground. Moving targets. Wind, cold, stress. And he hit 29 out of 40 shots in 90 seconds. When asked how he did it, Slape always gave the same answer. My father taught me to shoot. The army gave me the rifle. My buddies gave me the reason. That's all there is to it. But there's more to it than that. There's the cold calculation in the middle of chaos. The refusal to panic when death is certain. The ability to see the enemy as targets, not as men, just long enough to pull the trigger. And then afterwards, the ability to see them as men again. To carry that weight. To live with what you've done in the name of survival. The lesson of Lanzerath Ridge isn't about heroism. It's not about one man's incredible marksmanship, though that played a role. It's about what happens when ordinary people are placed in impossible situations and refuse to quit. 18 men, most of them not yet 25 years old, chose to stand and fight when surrender was the rational choice. They paid for that choice. 3 died on the ridge, 3 more died in the prison camp. The survivors carried scars, physical and psychological, for the rest of their lives. But they bought time, precious, irreplaceable time. Time measured in hours that translated into days that translated into an entire division reaching Bastogne before the Germans. Time that may have saved thousands of lives down the line. William Slape never called himself a hero. He bristled at the word. Heroes are the guys who didn't come home, he told his grandson in 2010. I'm just the guy who got lucky. But luck doesn't account for 29 hits in 40 shots. Luck doesn't explain the discipline to reload under fire, the calm to aim when mortar shells are falling, the courage to stand when every instinct screams to run. That's not luck. That's something else entirely. Something forged in the woods of western New York, hunting deer to feed his family. Something refined in the frozen hell of the Ardennes, fighting for brothers who would do the same for him. December 17th, 1944. Lanzerath, Belgium. 90 seconds that changed everything. 29 German soldiers dead. An offensive delayed. A ridge held. And one young man from Tonawanda, New York, who just wanted to come home alive to his wife. He did. He came home. And he spent the rest of his life trying to forget what he had to do to make that happen. But history won't forget. Can't forget. Because sometimes, in the worst moments humanity can create, ordinary people do extraordinary things. Not because they want to, because they have to. And we remember them for it, whether they want us to or not.